Welcome to this first session of the European Seminar on Private Pensions. This is the session due to the private pensions. The first speaker is Anna Maria Olivieri of the University of Parma. She talked about innovations in the design of life annuities. Welcome, Anna Maria.
Thank you,
Please.
Eva, and thanks to the organizers for inviting. Italy, because in Italy, in practice, we do not have annuities, because as we have heard in the last 2 days, in Italy also people, when they are provided a choice, they prefer to cash the money immediately. But we know that people are more and more exposed to financial risk and longevity risk, so they have to take some decision to hedge this risk. And even though, according to also some theoretical results, we know that standard annuities probably offer the best protection to these two risks, people do not like annuities. So as Pierre was suggesting on Monday, maybe insurers and then we as academics should figure out which alternative products can offer a protection without some of the features that we have in life annuities. So I'm not going to discuss the Italian experience because we do not have an Italian experience in this area. I will just comment some ideas, in particular coming from the study that I have developed. So I'm sorry for the graphical issues, because there are some graphical issues that are not very nice. They are in the original file, but not in the screen. So here I have just summarized what are the features that we have in a life annuity. Basically, the life annuity is based on mortality credits. These mortality credits are guaranteed in their amount, so that the insurer can offer a lifelong guaranteed annual payment. Because of this, the provider is exposed to a number of risks: financial risk, longevity risk in its two components, the aggregate and the idiosyncratic. Is also exposed to inflationary effects, to an adverse selection. And this is a long-term exposure. It is over a very long time horizon, whereas all assumptions about pricing, but also about the design, must be taken when the annuity is issued, so that reasonably there are conservative assumptions that are introduced, and the product is very inflexible. On the other hand, if we take the point of view of the individual, it is certainly good to have a lifelong protection, but maybe there are many points against this protection. For example, bequest preferences, which can be recovered quite easily by adding a death benefit anyhow, but the decision is irreversible, the asset is illiquid, and certainly annuities are perceived to be expensive, too much expensive by individuals. And recently we have experienced the pandemics, so maybe people do not really perceive that they are exposed to a longevity risk. It is usually hard, maybe personally, to perceive that we are exposed to a longevity risk, because the personal time horizon is, well, in 20 years maybe you will be out of your money, and 20 years maybe we say, well, we are talking of nothing. And especially when we experience shocks in mortality at older ages, maybe individuals can believe that actually this is not an issue. And maybe we should really try to understand what individuals think a life annuity does represent. If they just look at the annuity as an investment, then possibly the main focus should be on the return and the flexibility of the product, because we should find in the product what we find usually in investment. If it is perceived actually, as it should be, a protection against the risk of outliving his or her asset, well, we know anyhow that the annuity is not very much attractive, so we should think about innovation in respect of the benefit duration, additional benefit, not only the death benefit, but also LTC benefit, for example. And overall, we should think about the structure of the guarantee, moving from the very classical setting to some more innovative setting. We have heard in the last days that possibly a very popular interpretation about an annuity is that it is a non-refundable asset, which becomes interesting because, or maybe not interesting, but necessary because of tax incentive. It is subject to many constraints, maybe too many. I think that here there is mainly a cultural issue, so financial education, insurance education, which is something that should be improved in Italy in particular, but Elsa maybe will tell something about that. So about the possible innovation in annuity, so I'm in particular considering the private market, but this could also apply to occupational pension benefit. There are some areas that we can consider, and these areas are suggested also by some design that have been implemented in some situation, not necessarily the insurance market. So one possible way to reduce the price is to reduce the number of payment, and this can be obtained by postponing the start of the benefit payment through what has been named the old age annuity, and or limiting the number of payment. And there is an example which is very common in the market that we find in variable annuities. It is the guaranteed minimum withdrawal benefit, which in practice is an annuity with a maximum number of payment which are guaranteed. Or some recent ideas are about temporary annuities subject to renewal in the form of an extendable annuity. Clearly, this can be convenient, in particular to the insurer that can revise pricing assumption when renewing the product. Another possibility is to make the benefit more flexible by linking the benefit to some index. We know the very traditional financial participation, but maybe we can also think to a link into a longevity experience. And while Catherine, I was just looking at Catherine. Catherine has written very nice papers on, maybe not for insurance benefit, but for tontine arrangement.
Did this in Denmark, actually.
Yeah. So this is another, and contrarily to financial participation, in this case, we have also, the idea is to share also losses, not just profit. Adding benefit, it is traditional to add some death benefit, but maybe it is now the time also to insist more on health benefit, in particular LTC benefit. And I think that's been implemented in UK. Maybe we can also think of risk classification in life annuities, which is not traditional. So offering better annuity rates to those who are not in the optimal health status that is usually considered for the standard life annuity. So now I have just some comments, some discussion on this four section, which are based in particular on some research that I have developed. So I start with time restriction. So in this picture, what is summarized are different alternative arrangement that we can consider in respect of the duration of the annuity. So in the bottom part, there is the immediate. So XR is notionally a retirement age. So we have the HULE, the standard life annuity, which is the SPIA, it's also called the SPIA, the single premium immediate life annuity starting at retirement age, possibly underwritten prior to retirement age, so with a deferred life annuity. And then on the top part, we have the new product which has been studied, which is the old age or longevity insurance old age life annuity. With a payment starting at a later age and the product possibly underwritten prior to this later age. And just for comparison, I have also included the term life annuity, which clearly has a maximum number of payment. So if you compare an old age or longevity insurance to the standard life annuity, well, very intuitively, the price is lower because if we reduce the number of payment, the equivalence premium is lower. And the product actually, why was it introduced? To show a lower price to the individual. However, there is an issue that maybe should be taken into consideration. Longevity risk is not age independent. That is, the longevity risk depends on the range of ages that is involved by the product. So here it is a very simple picture of the lifetime duration. And when we consider an old age life annuity, certainly we reduce the total size of the longevity risk that the provider is taking. But in relative terms, since we are working on the tail of the distribution and on the range of ages where the longevity risk perhaps is more severe, maybe in relative terms, the insurer is taking a larger amount of longevity risk. And this could result certainly in a lower equivalence premium, but possibly in a higher loading because of the larger size of the, in relative terms, of the longevity risk that the insurer is taking. So we can have an impact on pricing. It is an issue that I think should be considered. So just to make a simple assessment here, we have compared the alternative arrangement, the immediate life annuity, a deferred, just for comparison, the term life annuity, and the old age, immediate or deferred. In the top table, you see what is the range of ages which is involved by the several arrangement. In terms of benefit payment and in terms of overall duration of the product. And in the bottom, what is quoted are the quantiles. So we can read this number as provided that the insurer is willing to accept a 10% loss probability or a 0.5% loss probability, what should be the total amount of money that the insurer should hold on top of the best estimate. So you see the best estimate value, which is clearly a result of the expected number of payment, which will be provided under the product, and the percentage measure the total capital required, depending on, you see the number on the top, 0.9 means 90% probability not to have a loss, not to report a loss, and the 0.995 is the 99.5% probability not to report a loss. And yeah, this is the total amount of money that the insurer should hold under this requirement. Here there is just longevity risk included in the assessment. There is no financial risk. And actually we see that for the old age, which are in the last two lines, the total amount of money required is higher than for standard annuities. These two probabilities were chosen thinking, well, what should be a reasonable pricing loading, so 90% probability not to lose money, and the second maybe the capital required if we think in a Solvency II logic with a default probability which is 0.5%. What happens when so this is just in line with the intuition. If we restrict the age period, the ages involved, possibly the provider is taking more risk, and maybe they will quote prices including a higher loading, if they are aware of this clearly, because clearly they have to be aware of this. And what happens when we include also financial risk, since we do not have much time, I have not included other example, but well, financial risk is not age-related, but is certainly related to the total duration of the coverage. So a deferred annuities involves significant financial risk because of the extension of the total duration. And when we consider old age annuities, it seems that, well, clearly this is based on some assumptions, some modest assumption that we have accepted, but it seems that there is a trade-off between the longevity and the financial risk, because we are restricting the period, so we should have less financial risk, but we are working on the ages where the longevity risk can have a larger impact. So the trade-off basically depends on the volatility of risk, the financial risk, and the volatility of longevity risk. So it depends, what is more important depends on the scenario. About the longevity linking, well, here it is not very nice to be to be read, but well, I have just described on the top a general rule that we can refer to for linking the benefit, the annuity benefit, to some experience. There are three ratios. The first is about the return, the financial return. The second is based on the annual survival rates, and the third on the actuarial value of the annuity. The actuarial value of the annuity relates to the reserving basis, that the reserve that the provider has to set up. And the pink is what is called here a benchmark. So we have in mind a benchmark for the return, a benchmark for the survival rate, which is for the survival rate. This benchmark is obtained from a life table, maybe a best estimate life table that we have currently. And for the annuity rate, the actuarial value of the annuity, the pink is how with this table today we assess the value of the annuity. But then we got experience. So the blue is what we observe, in particular for the survival rate. In a given population, maybe we observe a survival rate which is higher than what is our benchmark. And the benchmark is what we have used possibly to price initially the product and then to update the reserve in time. So if the survival rate is higher, the provider is reporting a loss, and this loss can be shared with the individual by reducing the benefit according to this ratio. And similarly for the actuarial value of the annuity, if we have a new life table because we have new information about mortality, possibly we have to reinforce the reserve, or maybe we can just reduce what is set aside in the reserve. And from this, the provider will incur into a loss or a profit that can be shared with the individual. So this is the idea. If we have this this idea has been already introduced in group self-annuitization arrangement or turn-time arrangement, where no guarantee is included because the members share the risk. They are just pooling together their money, so to take advantage of the pooling effect, but they are still exposed to aggregate longevity risk. I am focusing mainly on longevity risk than financial risk. But this idea can be adopted also for insurance-based product, but clearly we need to have some guarantees included. And some guarantees can be, and if we think to an insurance product, it must be simple to be understood. It cannot be too much complicated. So in particular, it cannot be linked both to the survival rate and to the actuarial value, one or the other, because otherwise it seems that the provider will change the basis according to what is more convenient to them. So for insurance, for insured annuities, we should think just to link to one or the other. This will embed some guarantees because the provider will not follow overall the experience, but just part of the experience. And on top of these embedded guarantees, we should also include some further explicit guarantees. For example, on the benefit amount or on the ratio, on what seems to be more convenient. So I have included also some example, but I think that I have 5 minutes, so maybe I just, well, this is just a numerical example, just showing, this is again a premium loading that would be required under some assumption, accepting a 10% loss probability for the provider. And what we see, well, clearly it is not possible to understand everything, but well, on the top we have the fixed benefit, on the bottom the group self-annuitization, so the standard guarantee or no guarantee. And in between, we have some intermediate solution that, depending on how the parameters have been chosen, what is the linking rule, it is a survival rate, and how we choose the benchmark, then we share more or less risk with the individual, and this should result in a lower or higher loading. So people maybe accept the possibility to see in the future their benefit reduced if today they pay less, because maybe they are more focused on what is the current price, and they accept the deal. Maybe for them it is, maybe they do not really feel that their benefit can be reduced in the future. And when comparing a standard with some other solution, maybe they find it convenient. Additional benefit, this is something that I have just already mentioned. Well, we are very used to death benefit. This is more a commercial packaging than a real interesting solution, in particular in respect of pricing and risk overall. It is more a way to meet the individual's expectation about the bequest rather than changing the price, the overall pricing. And the reason is that usually death benefits are limited to a range of ages in which longevity risk is not very important. Maybe it is more interesting to consider a long-term care benefit. The enhanced pension is the most classical situation that we can have in mind, with the initial reduction of the benefit funding an important increase of the benefit in case in the future the individual becomes disabled and needs long-term care. Risk classification. So this is the rationale. The rationale is to involve a larger market share, so to extend the number of potential annuitants of reaching potential annuitants by offering annuity rates which are perceived to be more consistent with what is the health condition of the individual. So the two pictures just suggest with a standard product, the reference health situation of the individual is very good. And this results in annuity rate that can be perceived to be too low, but those who are, maybe they are not in critical condition, but they just suffer some sickness in the past, and so they think that they do not have such a long life expectancy. Yeah, smokers, for example. And so the idea is to classify risks as it is performed usually for term insurance and for insurance, offering better annuity rates to those, to smokers, for example, or also to those suffering a sickness in the past. Here are some of the products which have been designed, and I just mentioned some possible issues that could impact on pricing. Well, there is an issue extending the portfolio should, so increasing the number of annuitants from the point of view of the provider should improve mutuality, so the ability to compensate among lifetimes. But at the same time, the portfolio would become more heterogeneous, and heterogeneity is against this pooling effect. So we should just check what is the trade-off between these two aspects. Then practical aspect, how to classify risk, how to choose risk factor. Well, the second is an item that was, what are the rating factors? The rating was, just, I don't know why, it has disappeared. And certainly from the point of view of the provider, there is a risk, a new risk, which is the risk of misclassifying the individual, so a wrong classification that can result in some adverse selection effect, as well as a cannibalization effect in the sense that possibly currently there are individuals that would be placed in a lower class that are already underwriting the annuity. So these ideas are ideas that I have described in this paper, joint with Ermanno Pitacco. It is very self-referential, this list, but well, I simply decided to shorten the number of the slides, and there are references in these papers too, because clearly this is something that we have learned also from many others. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anna Maria. I don't know if there are some questions.
Thank you so much, Anna Maria, for this nice overview. My question was about inflation. If we look at the competitors with respect to these annuities, for instance, the pay-as-you-go, so I will take my French, okay, I will try to defend France, but it's the last time, okay. In pay-as-you-go, it's not so complicated, that's in some sense natural to link benefits to inflation or to increase of wages. For instance, in Belgium, it's a huge barrier against annuities because the products which are proposed in Belgium are with fixed benefits. Okay. And when you have, what has changed is, of course, the life expectancy. In the past, we had a life expectancy of 5-10 years after retirement, so it was a short duration. But nowadays, people arriving at pension at 65 have a life expectancy of 25 years. Inflation on 25 years, that's a miss, okay? So my question was, do you have also in mind, or does it exist also products with sort of inflation-linked annuities? Because for banks also, another competitors is financial products, not annuities, but financial products. So you take the lump sum, and with this lump sum, that's exists in Belgium, you invest the lump sum in banks products where you can find some inflation protection. So you see the point? So do you think there are some products which try also to link the benefits to some inflation protection?
Well, I think that with the financial participation, which is in Italy, financial participation is very traditional because we have in endowments. So I think that when in Italy we think to an annuity, we think to an annuity in which we have financial participation, and financial participation should partially offset the effect of inflation. On the side of the provider, an inflation-linked product means that we should, it depends on the asset on which the provider can invest. So I think it is a critical guarantee, because if we do not have for sure an asset inflation-linked, then it becomes really, well, it depends on how inflation will go, clearly.
People use in general the lump sum to buy a house, because a house is in some sense.
But in Italy, in Italy currently, if you have to purchase a house, you have to pay a lot. But if you have to sell a house, you will receive a low value.
So just, sorry. I was just commenting that the house provides an annuity in terms of your housing service, because you don't have to pay monthly your rent.
So yeah, just related to that. So of course, if you ask people in industry and life insurance, they say, it should be inflation linked. Now in the UK, you see just sort of two things to say. So in the UK, you see people will say, oh yes, I want an inflation linked benefit. But when they actually go to buy an annuity, 90% of them will buy the level annuity that doesn't increase with inflation, because the annuity amount they get is so much lower, and they think, I'm not going to live that long, et cetera, et cetera. But then the other issue is, if it's an annuity with guarantees, then the insurance company is going to try to invest in mostly matching assets, which are a small supply of government inflation-linked bonds for the most part. Okay, there's some corporations, but really they would have to, there's not enough. If everybody was investing in inflation-linked or wanted inflation-linked income and they wanted to guarantee it, then there just isn't enough supply of truly matching inflation-linked assets. And you would have to invest in equities, and it's sort of too much risk in equities for what you want to do, but what's your choice? So it's a little bit, I think we have to then move from guaranteed annuities to allowing the participants to take some kind of risk.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. And I completely agree, about having a home. It's also a way to protect against inflation, and it's also a way to provide you also additional income. If you would like to rent, for example, part of your home or your apartment. And as you know, we have also in the market what we call the reverse mortgage. And this kind of product, as you know, have been proposed for a couple of years and are still not developed, because it costs a lot. And with my colleague Georges Bravo from Information Management School at Lisbon, we have developed, we hope, a new solution, how to use this property and to develop a new scheme that gives the possibility for homeowner to keep their property and to rent their property to finance their consumption at old age, and specifically the long-term care, because the long-term care will cost a lot, as you know, and it's what we call mortgage equity release scheme. So this could be also maybe one possibility to finance also consumption at old age, and again specifically about the health situation that we will meet at very, and very costly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice presentation and all the work you've done on this. I mean, in general, one of the big problems is that people largely underestimate their life expectancy. So we start from there. So any price, I mean, any reasonable price seems expensive to people. On the other hand, insurance companies don't like these products because they have a lot of risk. I mean, a large longevity risk, so that, I mean, forces them to put a large loading on these products, which makes them appear even more expensive. So, I mean, the solutions I've seen is a combination of fixed-term annuities, which are easy to understand the pricing of them for individuals and not so risky for insurers, and then deferred social security annuities, life annuities. And then it is society as a whole who bears the risk of longevity. So it's the most pooling effect that we could have. And then there's also the sense from people that buying an annuity is leaving money for the insurance company. They don't see, I mean, there is an implicit pooling of risk, but they don't see it. They see just me against the insurance company, and therefore that's part of the why tontines are appealing, because people are explicitly sharing the risk with a given pool of insurers. So I think there's over these things, tontines, fixed term annuities, and deferred social security annuities. I think that's where things may go.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ana Maria. Let's go to the next. Let's present. Welcome, Elsa. This is Elsa Fornero from the University of Toronto and the Torino. Torino, Italy, and the Real Collegio Carlo Alberto. She speaks about the private pensions in Italy, and is welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Sorry.
You come and, upload. No, so you upload the presentation. No, what are you doing?
I'm here in the TV, don't you? Wait for a moment. Okay, no,
Okay.
it's okay.
Okay. Here is the presentation. The title is different, but I will talk somewhat about Italy. I think my presentation is integrating Ana Maria's presentation because it's the main reason why the market for annuity is so thin almost everywhere. And the fact is that in Europe, we love public pensions. We don't want them to be reformed. We love public pensions, and they provide a longevity insurance, and not so badly in the past, and let's hope in the future. But first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be in this ancient university, in this beautiful library, and I'm glad to be here. It's a pity that I couldn't come yesterday and the day before, but it's a concomitant engagement and also some delay from the EasyJet. Okay. So the title is rather long. What is the path toward a mixed pension system? Here is, let's say, the plan of the presentation, and my thesis is that the pay-as-you-go, for good and for bad, has left us a great legacy from the past, but it is in need of reforms, of course. Among the suggested reforms, and this was particularly by the World Bank, is a move in the direction of a mixed system. Mix means that from the financing point of view, it means pay-as-you-go and funding, and it means more actuarial formula and all the defined benefit formula that were used in the public system. The transition, however, I say, is not a free meal. Like all transition, you have transition costs, and in this case, they are quite high. Italy is a clear case in point, and to achieve the objection, I say, of financial inclusion and security in retirement, look at all the ingredients that are necessary. Sustainable growth, efficient and inclusive labor and financial markets, plus citizen basic financial education. All are needed. Because if the economy is not performing well, if the labor market is poor, and if financial markets and the insurance market are not so efficient, then you cannot have nice longevity risk, nice pension. Okay, first, since we are talking about pension funds integrating the public social security, what are the rationale? So the rationale is prevent poverty in old age. We should never forget this. It's because people are not so rational, not so far-sighted, and maybe they are very poor when they are active and young, and so they cannot have an adequate retirement income when they are old. And this the markets cannot provide. Let's be clear about this. Then there is a paternalistic behavior of governments to overcome individual myopia. You were referring to this, Anna Maria, to avoid the Samaritan dilemma. Some people could count on popular benevolence in the form of generous law against poverty in old age, and so on and so on. But also, there is the fact that the annuity markets, this is exactly what you said, Anna Maria, you mentioned guarantees. First of all, when you want a guarantee, you have to pay for it first. Second, you said guaranteed, but it meant guaranteed in nominal terms. In nominal terms, we know it can be good for low inflation period, but it's very bad when we have inflation like we have now. Moreover, you can have a guarantee in real terms, but if the labor force, if the active people move on because of productivity increase, the distance between the active population and the retirees increases because you have no possibility to index somehow the annuity that you are providing on productivity gains, which is what the public system can, in some way, very imperfect, provide. And second, we should not forget that we have a history of solidarity, a history of, let's say, establishing social rights, not just human rights. The Declaration of Social Rights includes the right to have a decent life in retirement, in old age. And so this was the establishing of welfare in, I just have to mention Lord Beveridge, because the idea was to provide services and social insurance to allow people to live better. Okay, so this is far more than just providing an annuity. And it is the reason why we should continue to want social insurance and to improve and to sustain in the future against the risk that now the systems are going on. Now, PAYGO has been variously interpreted, but the best way to interpret the PAYGO system is an intergenerational contract. And this has been done many decades ago from Samuelson, and who has said that this is a kind of contract that allow people to get a different type of asset, a type of asset which provides a return, properly designed, which is the return, let's say, of the rate of growth of GDP. It's an asset that, as I said before, you cannot really buy in the marketplace, but it has a value. And so the idea that financial sustainability of the system is not something that is very popular, that you see the contributions that you pay in social security, in pension, public pension system, as a kind of financial contributions, as a kind of savings that have a return. If I ask in Italy, but are you aware that the contribution that you pay in the system, in the public system, get a return, which is not a financial return, which can be lower, okay, but it is tied to the labor income growth. So to the growth of the active population, employed population, we should say, and to productivity growth, which means that we are somehow rewarding by the general performance of the economy. And people are normally very surprised by this. They do not have any familiarity with this, but it makes the system more acceptable, even in terms of what we will tell, I will tell further on, which is the movement from a DB kind of formula to a DC, because DC, defined contribution, is exactly rewarding contributions that you pay in with a return that is given by the growth rate of labor income. And then you have solidarity, because if the system is public, there is no point in just mimicking perfectly an insurance company. No, it has to accomplish a solidarity. The main challenge now is to adapt to unfavorable demographic and economic structural changes, and also to limit political misuse. Why I say political misuse? Because I said before, it is an intergenerational contract. And when you talk of solidarity, it is the current and young and future generations that you have to preserve. But the state is represented by politicians, and politicians are just like us. They have a short horizon. And typically, they look at next round of elections and not at future generations. So this is a reason, a worrying reason. Why pension reforms? We said before, there is the demographic transition. There is, someone say, a structural low growth rate. We are in an epoch where the rate of growth of the past are perhaps the past, not any longer the future. Then there is what I said, the implicit pension debt, because it is an intergenerational contract, but it is relatively easy for the government to promise benefits for the current retirees or near retirees that are more generous than what the source of income can generate, and this means that you create an implicit debt. It's not a debt represented by bonds, for example, the one that we know and for which there are statistics, but you know that the OECD is trying to develop a statistic of implicit pension debts, having a lot of problems because many countries simply do not want that their implicit pension debt be made explicit and be put together with the other one, which is represented by bonds. Okay. And then you have the future, which is very, very uncertain. And, well, with all these AI, with the digitalization, what will be the social security of the future? What we already know that the labor market has already now quite a lot of problems. We know that the young do not have the same stable and continuous working career by which they can or they could accumulate enough pension wealth to have a decent retirement. For the young, this now is much more difficult, so we have to perhaps rethink our public pension according to the new problems that we have. I'm not commenting this, but just to have the clear image of the unbalanced demographic scenario. And if you look at Italy, Germany, France is the one by which they protest for their pension, because they said our demographic scenario is not like Italy, like Germany, like Spain, so we don't have the same demographic problems. They also say something else, but their demographic scenario is not as worse as it is, as you see, in Italy and Spain. This is a projection that has been published in the Lancet. It has been very much discussed. It says, for example, that Italy will lose 20 million inhabitants before 2100. 20 million, you know, is 1/3 of our population. So we hope will not have that reduction. And of course, the consequences are, no, let's move this. The consequences are this, the change in old age dependency ratio, and you see that everywhere the old age dependency ratio is increasing, and is increasing quite rapidly. And that's why it's somehow necessary to increase retirement age, because people, well, we just had the terrible COVID years. Many people, many older people died, and so it is sad to talk about increasing longevity after this, but the truth is that the path of increasing life expectancy has now recovered. And while fertility rate in many countries, in Italy, fertility rate in these years is 1.22, which is very, very low, very low. It's one of the lowest. And here is the increase, another transparency to look at the increase in old age dependency ratio. Now, okay, what we have said is people are used to have Social Security. They complain about Social Security in many ways. They complain about reforms. There is also an interpretation of Social Security to which people are referring quite often, which is, it's my own right. it's my entitlement. Why are you cutting my entitlements? And it is difficult to explain. Okay, reforms, I'm not talking about the reforms. I said that you have to increase the retirement age. One reform that has been more or less done almost everywhere in Europe is a move towards, within the public system, a DC-like kind of formula. So somewhat the public system has incorporated a pension formula which is more actuarially sustainable, because you have a pension account, all your contributions are recorded there, the return is given by an approximation of the rate of growth of labor income. We have a weighted average of the 3 past years of geometric average of the past 3 years of rate of growth. And then you have your notional capital at the end when you retired, and this is transformed through a conversion factor into an annuity, and that is your pension. And then the pension is indexed to inflation. It was once indexed to the growth rate, nominal growth rate of wages. Now, G has been cut because of too much expense, and so there is only inflation. And I have to say, because I've done the same when I was a minister, that when you do reforms, you also cut a bit of the indexation to inflation. You say for higher pensions, indexation is just, let's say, half of it, or 30% or 60%, according to the level of your pension. Okay. But one of the things that has been, as I said before, has been very much supported as a reform to improve the efficiency of retirement system is a move towards funding. What is the idea behind? There was quite I would say, enthusiastic discussions about this movement towards more funding. Why is this? Because it said, okay, interest rates, financial interest rates, are normally higher than GDP growth rate. And so if you move to more funding, you get a higher return. This was the idea. And the idea was based on a lot of research, what has been called financial archaeology, by which many researchers went back in the past to trace the path of interest rate. And over a long period, they always found a superiority of financial interest rates over GDP. I am referring here, to various research. It started Modigliani, Siegel, Jorion and Guzman, Feldstein and Samwick, Feldstein and Ranguelova, and they all said, oh, it's a move towards efficiency and welfare, the move to funding, because the interest rates are much higher. So there is an implicit hidden tax in forcing people to stay in the pay-go. And you may remember that the second Bush administration started exactly with the idea of privatizing Social Security. You know that American Social Security is quite different from our public pension system, but it is Social Security, and it is largely for the poor income, because well, the rich can have different insurance policies, but it is Social Security. And even if they tried, the administration tried to talk to the people and to say the marvelous things that could be achieved by moving towards a funded pension, individual funded pension, they wanted individual products, well, even the Republicans, voters, would not listen to this. And very rapidly, Bush canceled the idea. But it was a strong advocation to have this privatization. And you also know, I'm not talking about this, you come from Brazil, and you know all the experiences of South America, where many, there were political breaks, political changes, and many South American countries moved in the direction of privatization, but they have taken the movement back to some of them, and rightly so. At the beginning it was true, but this was perhaps the privatization of the whole economy. The returns were quite high, everybody was enthusiastic, the expenses were incredibly high, people would change from one pension fund to another in search for higher returns, and then started the losses. And people said, where is the state? Where's the state providing me my decent pension? So at the end of this, financial archaeology conveys the impression that the US are hardly representative of the global stock market. So even a partial transition to funding should be examined, designed, and decided on lower expected returns. And I quoted here Blanchard, who expects a period of low returns from now on, and he says there is a tendency for market to focus on the present and extrapolate for the future. But this is not the best way to form expectations. So what is the point? The point is, can you encourage private pension? Is there a rationale to do this? And the answer is yes. Yes, on which terms? Well, as an integration to public pensions, because public pensions have to be redesigned, have to be reformed. They already had been subject to reform, but there is a need for integration to complement the public pension. And so this should be possible through what? I say voluntary savings, fiscally encouraged. I know your objections. You say, why voluntary? Well, I tell you, for example, in Italy, where we have a strong public sector, not a small one, a large public sector in terms of pension, putting an obligation for participation to, for example, occupational pension funds would mean constitutionally that you have to provide a guarantee, because there is an article of our constitutions that says that the state will protect savers. But the market is subject to risks. And if you say that you guarantee a minimum return, for example, then the distinction between the public and the private is weaker. And so, since, for example, in our country, workers pay 33% of their wage, okay, of their earnings, to to finance the public pension, if you would put, for example, another 7%, then that means 40% of your gross earnings there compulsorily in retirement. And think of the young. How can the young, having 40% for their pension coming in 50 years maybe? So it's very, very complex. I am very much in favor of fiscally advantages for pension funds. I am very much in favor of occupational pension funds where expenses are low, relatively low than in individual accounts, and where people can also feel together, sharing the risk among an occupation, have small examples of solidarity between them, and participating in this plan of integrating their public pensions. I have nothing against the financial markets and insurance markets, of course, but this has to be voluntary. Participation in the financial markets, also in the light of the crises that have occurred just recently, I think making this compulsory is inappropriate. This is my view. So, Italy. Italy has had many reforms, starting from the 90s when the discussion started saying this is not sustainable. There were reforms in 92 and 95. 95 is particularly important, but there was also a political price to pay. And the political price was, okay, we design a very sustainable pension system with the adoption of a clear DC pension formula, defined contribution, but it will be implemented in 2030. So you see the phasing in was dramatically low. It was just for the new entrant. For older people, the transition was too long. And those who were 20 years to the pension were in practice were not touched at all. The rules were maintained for them. And so this is a good path if you are in good health. It's like taking a medicine when you have a very high cholesterol, but saying, okay, I continue to have the same food even if I know that it's very bad for me. And so in 2011, we had a financial crisis, very, very near, and another reform had to be enacted. I was the one who signed that reform. Was not easy, I can assure you, but the reform is still there, even if the subsequent government have made exceptions. For all these years, they have said, okay, the exceptions for the next 2 years is a lower retirement age. The exception for the further 2 years is another small increases, exception through exception, but the final point is still there. It was necessary, perhaps. Certainly it could be, let's say, made better, but it's there. And the thing is that we still need, against the demographic transition that you have seen, we still need to do a lot to have a sustainable public pension system. But the lot is not on the public sector, it's mainly on the employment side, because we have an employment rate which is the lowest in Italy, in Europe. It is 60% already. It seems high for our records in the past 25 years, but it is 60% of the working force, and so it's too low. And with this low participation and low employment, it's very difficult to maintain the system. But it's not forcing people to work until 70 or even more. It's increasing the performance of our economy. I say this why? Because the discussion now is not about pension funds. We talk a lot about public pensions, but pension funds have a good regulation. This is the advantage of coming later. We are the European regulations that apply to our pension funds and insurance companies. We have, well, yes, something has happened. You see, however, the difference between Netherlands, UK, Belgium, Spain, this is OECD source, and Italy. So you see there is an increase in Italy in terms of pension funds, but as a percentage of GDP, the pensions, funded pensions, are still very, very low. In terms of participation, you see we have less than 35% of the working population participating, and in 2021, only 1/4 of them contributed actively. So it's really something that has to grow. But there is no discussion about this. There is no discussion because fiscally they are quite convenient, and for pension funds, I will show you something. For pension funds, if you occupational, if you don't participate, you lose the percentage that is contributed by your employer. But this is not, even this is not enough to make all the workers to participate. Also, we have let's say, an economic structure which is based on many, how many minutes? Oh, well, I have plenty of time. With the discussion included. Just for me? Oh, it's a lot. I have tried to speak very quickly. In any case, what I wanted to say is that all these small firms, Italy is a country of small and medium firms, and these can have an occupational pension if they are working in a sector like the metal mechanical, which are strong, where the trade unions are quite important, but in service like tourism, you have no pension funds or very little. And so it's very, very difficult to motivate, and to motivate particularly the young because of their precarious life. In any case, I want to just show you. Here is participation by the young, and you see it's very low. Here it is participation divided by gender, and you see women also because women's occupation is mainly in sector, again, where in service sectors. And so it's difficult for them to participate. But you see there is an increase. So if you want to see the half full glass, you may say the regulation is there. We don't need a reform there. We are fully integrated in the European private pension landscapes and regulations. And you may say that it's a long way, but it is there. No going back, like sometimes in the public system. But there is something to do. And there is an information campaign. And there is what I call, let's say, pension literacy. People have to understand in terms not of the various possibilities of annuity, because, for example, I am convinced, I'm not sure about that, you may give me, Anna Maria, an answer, but I think that the annuity provided by the occupational pension funds are just standard. You cannot have a variety. and people can, well, of course you may have survivor benefits, maybe you can have some LTC, I'm not sure about that, and you can have some additional benefits if you want, but the annuities that are on offer in pension funds are quite limited, so that people can understand them. It's quite difficult otherwise. And another terrible problem is the regional distribution. So you see in the South, in practice, they don't know what pension funds are. And that is very bad. That is a reflection of the economic dualism, of the Italian economic dualism. The industrial economic structure in southern Italy is still very weak, and its earnings are relatively low. The Italian average is low. It has been low in the past 15 years. 20 years of no growth in earnings in Italy, okay? But there is this regional divide which is quite heavy, and which should be contrasted, and we hope to somewhat contrast this with the plan, the recovery and resilience plan that we have, by which we obtained 200 billion euro from Europe. 200 billion is not bad for a GDP. No, for a GDP that is 1,800. So it's quite an important amount of money. Okay, so this is the regional disparity. It's also in terms of contribution. It's not only in terms of participation, but it's also in terms of the amount of contributions. You see the Calabria in practice as nothing. Here are the expenses, and you see that, well, the occupational, the lower line, and then there is the collective, the open pension funds collective, and then there is what we call the private pension, individual private pensions, which are a way to invest, to diversify your portfolio. It's not really for pensions that are bought. Okay, so if you ask people, many of them reveal that they don't know, they don't trust also, they have no money to put in a pension fund. This is the most important reason. You ask people, why don't you participate? They say, well, who has the money? And the second, do you know that your employer, if you are in an occupational pension, will pay for you? And they say, no, I didn't know. So there is also a question of information. Participation grew when the government tried to change, I said it is optional. They changed the default option for 2 years. It meant, okay, in Italy we have a severance pay fund. It means that 7% of gross earnings is set aside. It has a guaranteed return of 1.5%, which is not bad, plus 75 of the inflation rate. And it is cashed as a lump sum when you leave your occupation, irrespective of age. And you know what? For most people, this is the only time in their life when they have a nice amount of money, all in once, you know, and typically this is used for repairing the house, or maybe the house of the grandparents in the countryside, so to have something. So you retire and you use your severance pay to renew the house of your parents. And you ask me to transform this into a pension? No, thank you. The answer is, there was a bit of a positive response, but it wasn't a true success because, yeah, it's understandable why only the rich should see a big amount of money in their life and not just what you monthly need for your survival. Okay, so this is what people say. Okay, it doesn't matter. Lack of money, as I said, is the reason. So what is an inevitable modest growth? My prediction is this. We will have a growth, but for a real growth, we need a growth of earnings. And no compulsory, no obligation will solve this, because you cannot oblige people who have little income to contribute to a pension when you already ask for 33% for public pensions. Okay, so this is the way ahead. My point, I just summarize 3 elements. Reform you have to do to confront the demographic and economic, but not just the pension reform, maybe labor market, and maybe something to enhance productivity, for example, the digital transformation. Second, information has to be transparent. You know that pensions are one of the most popular topics for people. But the information is not just the information provided by the institutional pension agency, by the pensioner. No, all the newspapers talk about information, and they like to interview people who express the most terrible worries, only them. And this creates an agitation among people. It creates, okay, I try to, okay? And then educate. So reform, inform, educate. Education is financial and pension education. Is not meant to make people financial experts. No, absolutely. Is made to give them basic knowledge. Very basic knowledge. By the way, I'm very happy to announce that there is a new journal, Cambridge Journal, which is a journal exactly on financial education. And the new, it will be inaugurated in Hamburg later this month. Okay, and I think I stop here. This is just my way of describing, let's say, a reform, not like moving in a trade-off, but pushing the trade-off frontiers so that achieving a more efficient pension system. But it is just an idea. I think people also have to understand that when you reform the pension system, it is for the future, and it is also for their and their children's future. So I stop here, and I thank you very much for the patience. And if you want, I'm here to answer.
Thank you, Elsa. If there is any question, Mercè.
So you mentioned the woman position in the labor market. So you have a gender gap that we observe also in many countries. I am not sure that the campaign information could change the situation. because I guess we could expect worst situation in the labor market for women in a few years due to this high dependency situation for all people. And, in many countries, many OECD countries, many European countries, we do not have an efficient and also sustainable long-term care system. So what we could expect is women in few years will take care about their old parents. And then they can quit quite early the labor market. So I guess this would be a big issue, no? Maybe more than pension. The pension system. It's more than, it's about, again, this long term, and it costs a lot. So with the pension benefit, we cannot. Yes, okay. Yeah. With the pension benefit that women have today, it's not enough for them, to pay the long term care for their parents. And their parents, they also have a very low level of pension to take care about their own health cost. So I think we will have bigger issues in very few years. And my second question is about, as you said, political have short horizon. And pension reform, as you know, it's quite difficult to put in place in different countries. I guess one of the reasons is public pension schemes. There is pension rights, and with the reform you change this right, and this could be not fair for different generation. And when we talk about pension system, it could not be in short term horizon. It must be in the long term, because we are dealing with the long term. And why we don't try to think about a new way to manage this system? It could be public, private, another way. Maybe not leadership. Maybe I can give maybe one example. You could believe that it's not a good one, but for me, really, it's a good example about French pension system. The second pillar, it's compulsory, working on pay-as-you-go basis. It's a point system, and is very well managed, and it's managed in parity basis. So maybe we could think about another way to manage in the long term. Thank you.
Okay. So women, that is a critical point everywhere. I said the Italian employment rate is 60%, and that is an average of 50% for women and 70% for men. Just to tell you, in France, the average is 67, 68. In Germany, it is 75, 76. Not to mention Sweden, where it is near 80% employment rate. Okay, so there is a huge employment problem. Mind you, we have an informal economy. So it means that which means that the poverty is not as it appears from statistics, because people have an informal income. Okay, they work in the black economy. But that does mean it's not efficient. And it means that the money does not go to the pension system, and they will not be entitled to a pension themselves. So that is a problem, and it is particularly a problem of women. I am not so sure. I mean, I work a lot on, let's say, financial literacy for women, because really women are more at risk as a social group. So you cannot wait to teach financial literacy in school for the effects to be manifest in 20, 30 years. You have to work with specific women's group. an example is many women facing difficulties in finding a job think of themselves as entrepreneurs. They have a small project maybe, they are together, they look for a credit, and the answer is more than often no, because you don't provide a guarantee except for your good idea, but a good idea is not a sound guarantee for bankers. So talking to them, explaining how to make a proper budget, how to account for hidden expenditures. Okay, this is very important. And encouraging association of women to do things together. That is very important. Also, I'm not sure that digitalization is not really working in favor of women, because there is no reason why women should be less prepared in the digital economy than men. And the kind of offer, even in the sector you were mentioning, can be something not so bad. You said, well, women will be directed towards care. Again, the tendency in Europe is to have institutionalized care of older people. Decent one, not just a situation where you are parked there, no. And to tell you, I just, a couple of months ago, I wrote an article in an editorial, because there had been a new contract that had been renewed. And the contract foresee €5 gross per hour for the lowest level, which means cleaning. Up to 8 for almost nurse job. Up to 8, from 5 to 8, is that a decent earning? I wrote, and the president of the association who signed wanted to see and explain, and there was a mistake in what, but in any case, the idea is, what kind of message are you giving also to the elder people that are there? It means that you can get anybody just to do the job. You are not looking for any kind of professionality. But this is what I wanted to say, because that is, we don't want that kind of care performed by women. And this is certainly a development that has to be very much observed. You are right. Second, political difficulties. Well, I have discussed a lot about the notion of acquired rights, because acquired rights, you know, I had a colleague, very known, full professor at university, and when I cut the indexation, he wrote, and very much gauche, he wrote a letter to me and said, Elsa, was it really necessary? And I said, what are you talking about? You have a nice pension that you haven't paid. Somebody else will pay for your pension because of the wedge between your contribution and your pension, because the DB formula was such that you reward the earnings, you reward better the earnings that are steeper. Like a university professor ends up with a nice salary, even if it started with a low salary. Okay. And the pension benefit is tied to the end of your career, which means that you haven't paid for that. And so I said, are you serious? So maybe somebody else is paying for your solidarity is necessary, and it is one thing. And it has to be there. But solidarity means that I pay for somebody who is poor, not I make somebody who is poor paying for my own pension. And this has to be clear. And it means that the system has to be transparent. A public system needs solidarity, but the direction it has to be in the direction from rich to poor and not vice versa. So talking about acquired right, Najat, is very popular. But if you're talking of the rights of the relatively poor, I agree totally. If you are talking of the rights of the very high bureaucrats, I do not. Okay, but I'm sure that we agree on this. Thank you.
Does it work? Okay, okay. Oh. Okay. So two brief comments. I fully agree with you that crucial things in dealing with pension system problems today are labor market and productivity, because what we need is GDP growth. Yes, pension system consists of dividing GDP between generations. So the discussion about schemes is actually not so important as discussion about the labor market and productivity, which means actually investment, yes, because we need investment to improve labor productivity. And second point is that we very often focus on statistics, for example, delivered by Eurostat. However, the problem is that the majority of these statistics does not account for income in kind. Let me give you one simple example. Imagine we have two households, pensioners households with the same pension income. However, one household has own home, and the other one rents a home. Difference is crucial because in case of the first household, we have something which is called imputed rent. They don't have to pay for renting a house. And in Eurostat statistics, they are similar.
That is why when we were in government and I said that the situation was difficult, we also put in place with the first decree, which was called the Save Italy Decree, a tax on wealth. But since the Italian, let's say, statistics on wealth are very bad, we only put the wealth on housing wealth, excluding the poor, of course. But you know what? The government that came after canceled it. Because in Italy, if you talk of taxing the house, taxing the wealth is almost impossible because there is not like in France, there is a record of your wealth. In Italy, no, wealth is something mysterious, okay? The only one that is known because it is there, it is the housing wealth. And tax it and people, and so you gain vote if you say, we will abolish the horrible wealth tax. Exactly. That is what. Okay, thank you very much.
Next speaker is Mercè Claramunt from the University of Barcelona and the principal research of the Observatory de los Sistemas Europeos de Previsión Social Complementaria. And she talked about on which socioeconomic groups do reverse mortgage have the greatest impact, evidence from Spain.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm going to speak about a product that Najat has mentioned today and that yesterday also sometimes is included in the what we could call fourth pillar. Yeah. Then we had a previous study in which we analyzed the impact on the economic conditions of Spanish families without making any distinction between them. And then in this study we have analyzed in depth the different impact that contracting a reverse mortgage in a Spanish family could have in the economic conditions of the family. But we will not only look at the initial effects, that means the effects on the income, but we have defined other indicators that affects the probability of liquidity and the overall liquidity needs during the life of the family until the extinction. Yeah. Then I don't know if is there a problem with the slide? Oh, it's me. Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. Then this is the definition. You know what's a reverse mortgage, and this is one of the products that is good to obtain additional income by using the habitual residence as collateral and then liquefy wealth. Then it's a mortgage, loan, or credit from which the owner of the dwelling draws down sum of monies on a regular basis until reaching the maximum amount determined by a percentage of the dwelling assessed value at the moment of contracting it. The problem or the question is that when this percentage is reached, the borrower cannot make any more drawdowns, and then the debt continues to generate interest. From the point of view of the company, the recovery of the drawdowns plus interest usually takes place upon the death of the mortgage debtor of the last beneficiary through the cancellation by the heirs or foreclosure of the mortgage by the credit entity. Then this product has some advantages and some drawbacks. Let me mention only one advantage, is that the ownership of the property is maintained when the product is taken out, and either the heirs, upon the death of the contracting party or the last of the beneficiary, have the option of keeping the property after the cancellation of the accumulated debt. The main drawback is precisely that the heirs may find that the accumulated debt is very high or even higher than the value of the property. In order that this drawback is not so high, in some countries there is the no negative equity guarantee that ensures that the owner and the heirs will cancel the total debt with the delivery of the property without any problem. Yeah? Yes, in several countries, yes. But this product, for instance, in Spain, and I think that is the same in other countries, has not been as successful as expected, because we thought that it was a good formula. Yeah? For instance, in Spain, because a high percentage of the wealth of a Spanish family is concentrated on houses. Yeah? Then why? There is several reasons. Let me mention only one reason from the supply point of view. We have few providers. Why? Because it's a risky product for providers. It's a really high risk product for them. And from the point of view of the demand, all stress that this is a product with a high technical complexity, and then we can diminish this drawback, this problem, with a clear explanation, aim at clarify the doubt of potential claimants, and more abundant advertising could improve this marketability. And another problem from the demand point of view is the family's financial literacy that has been to be a crucial element always. Both they are related, yeah? The financial literacy of families and the technical complexity of the product and the difficulty to explain. Yeah? Then, regarding the benefits that contracting a random mortgage for the families in Spain, here you have some references. For instance, Moscarola et al. In 2015 have made a study, and then they have concluded that reverse mortgage could reduce the vulnerability of families. They define an index of vulnerability, and this reverse mortgage would reduce this index of vulnerability over 65 years by 20%. Yeah. Then, for instance, we have another paper that I will come on after, and there is another third paper regarding Spain that in a scenario with only 8% of the potential households opting for a reverse mortgage, they will receive an extra mean annual income of this amount, 32,000 euros. Yeah? Then, regarding what type of household, this is the subject of this talk, would benefit most from reverse mortgage, then using data from the United States that has a big market of this kind of mortgages, then households with only one member with modest saving and poor health, and also those households with higher net worth and income, yeah, and better educational attainment. Yeah? This is not based exactly on data, because they have analyzed that those households with higher net worth and income are more likely to have reverse mortgage. Then what is the objective of this work is to look for specific families who would benefit more for reverse mortgage in Spain, considering different nature measures. In order to do this, we first perform a cluster analysis to create a homogeneous profile according to some socioeconomic characteristics. And we determine the impact of reverse mortgage on the finance of families that comply not only with legal conditions, because in our countries we have legal conditions, but also with all those determined by the supply in the financial and insurance markets. These conditions are usually related to the composition of the family in order to diminish, in order that the reputational risk that is high in this kind of product can be less. Then we use a simple economic financial model, really simple. The main variable is the net balance of a family in each period, basically income minus expenses until the extinction of the family that occurs when the last member of the family dies. Yeah? And then we include the income, the reverse mortgage disposal, the ordinary expenses, and also we have included the extraordinary expenses derived from entering into dependency. Yeah? And then these are computed for each year at the beginning and all of the years. Then ST, this main variable, is a stochastic process that includes a double sources of randomness: the year of death of each person in the family, as well as the possibility of entering into dependency of each member of the family. Yeah? Then just here we have an Spanish law that defines two groups that can be applicants for and beneficiaries of. Both has to comply with the constraint. They can be people aged 65 or older, yeah? And also those who have a specific degree of disability. But this study concentrates on all people because we are interested in this. Yeah? And we have also made, I can say, several hypotheses, yeah? Perhaps restrictive but necessary in order to do the study regarding the composition of and the evolution of the members of the family, regarding the income and retirement pensions, yeah? Including the possibility of widower pensions and a lot of possibilities, and some hypotheses regarding the distribution of ordinary expenses of the family. And then we have included into the model, obviously, the benefits of the public system, because here we have benefits of the public system regarding the entrance into dependency. Then we have used we have defined four indicators that permit us to measure the effect on the finance of the families. The first one is an easy one, is an income indicator. This is just the percentage represented by the periodic income to be received from the reverse mortgage with respect to the family income at the time it is contracted. It's an easy one, an understandable one, but it is a static one. And then we have defined three other indicators that are inspired from the probability of ruin and deficit at ruin in companies, in the solvency of companies.
It's a kind of substitution rate. The income you receive from your reverse mortgage with respect to the total income you had before asking.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, like this, yeah, exactly this. Then with the probabilistic indicator, we have calculated that decreasing percentage in the probability of illiquidity. Liquidity happens when the expenses are greater than the incomes, yeah. Then it measures that decreased percentage in the probability of illiquidity if you contract random mortgage compared if you don't have it. Yeah, we have used a random variable, that's the number of years of liquidity before a first period of illiquidity. Then we have defined two other, that's a temporal indicator, that's the percentage increase in the expected value of years without liquidity problems when you contract a reverse mortgage. And then a financial indicator that gives us the percentage reduction in the expected monetary amount of the lack of liquidity. This could be similar to non-life questions, yeah? Then here we need another random variable that is BLN that represents the sum of all the liquidity needs for the different periods, yeah? Then we have considered also that all families that can contract a reverse mortgage do so if the income to be received from the reverse mortgage is possible. Then our analysis includes all the families that could. We have not received any other condition. If they could, we assume that they will contract. Yes, this is the schedule of the study. Yeah. Then, wow, this is regarding the conditions of the reverse mortgage. We have considered that the reverse mortgage include a single drawdown and a constant periodic withdrawals. And we have included also an annuity insurance that comes, the referred annuity insurance that come after finishing the period for making the rounds for the reverse mortgage in order that the family can have the same amount each year until the death. Then here, I promise you, you could be able to see the formulas regarding how to calculate the initial single drawdown that is used exclusively to cover the initial expenses of the product that it's obviously can have to be paid by the contracted party, the payment of the single premium of an annuity insurance, so that family has not to disburse anything additionally, and the cancellation of the outstanding mortgage if the house has an outstanding mortgage, yeah, before the reverse mortgage. And then there is an obvious formula that you all know to obtain the annuity that will be obtained from the reverse mortgage, yeah. Then from the study we have excluded those families whose this formula would give negative value for the C, obviously, yeah, because it could be possible regarding the financial figures of the family, yeah. Then these are the parameters of the Spanish case taken from the market. Yeah. And then the sources includes the Spanish survey of household finances, who gives us data about the economic conditions and the composition conditions. You have here in this slide. We have taken data of dependency cost from a book of the Prada y Borge, who has evaluated the cost of entering into dependency for the Spanish case, and we have considered the benefits that comes from our specific Spanish law, the Dependency Act. Yeah? And then the last data we need is the generational mortality table, a Spanish one, yeah, the dependency incidence rate that comes from the monthly statistical report from the Instituto de Mayores y Servicios Sociales. And then we have considered that the mortality and dependency follows a non-homogeneous Markov chain with only 3 states, autonomous, dependent, and deceased, because the data only consider one possibility for dependency, that's the highest one. Yeah. And then regarding methodologies, well, the usual calculus, actuarial calculus, we have considered a mixed cluster analysis, and we have, in order to make this socioeconomic group, regarding the data we have in our Spanish survey, then we have considered economic variables, the incomes, the net wealth, the expenses, and the current appraisal value of the property in euros. We have included variables describing the number and age of all of the family members, and variables reflecting the age, sex, and marital status of the head of household, because this survey is organized in this way. Yeah? And after a process selection, we have selected the number of clusters and the significance of the variables in order to define the cluster, and we have obtained 3 socioeconomic clusters. And then this is the slide that summarizes the results. We have obtained 3 clusters, and there at the last place you can have the answers for any family, any Spanish family, without regarding the socioeconomic cluster to this family begins or is included. Yeah. Then we have our first.
But where the head of the family is 65 and plus.
Yes, not only the head of the family, but also all of the other people that lives in the house. Yeah.
All of them.
Yes, and we consider that them because they must be beneficiaries, and then our law imposes that the beneficiaries of the reverse mortgage must be 65 or older. Yeah? Yeah. Then we have excluded families who has other members between 30 and 65, because the data couldn't allows us to include them, but we have included families who had childs under than 15, and we have imposed a condition that they went out of the family when they reach 30 years old. Yeah, we have imposed some quite logical condition. Yeah, yeah. Then we have defined 3 clusters. The first one is the main. We can define it. Yeah, as a widowed woman, ages 81, 85, with low income. Low net wealth, this is annual, yeah? Low expenses, and with the property of this amount, quite low, yeah? Well, in this case, you have here the number of surveys and the number of Spanish families that this survey represents, yeah? And then, regarding the second cluster and the third cluster, we have married couples, yeah? The head house being a man. The difference between the third and the second and the third cluster is the age of the house of the head of the household and of the beneficiaries, yeah, and the income of the family, the net wealth and expenses of the property. And I stress that the cluster 3 is the high income, enormous net wealth, and a high value for the property, yeah? But this is the results of the cluster, yeah? And regarding the impact, the measures that we measure the impact, you see the first is the impact indicator, yeah? Cluster 1, this kind of widowed woman is the most benefited when regarding the amount that she obtained, because she obtained from the reverse mortgage as a percentage of the global income that she has. Yeah, but the others, if you look at the others indicators, if you look at the probability indicator, yeah, and the last one, the financial indicator, in fact, cluster 2 and cluster 3 are the most benefits. Yeah, the most benefited. Yeah, then. Yeah. Is it a survey made in Spain? Yeah. No, it's an official survey. Yeah. Yes. Yes. It's a survey that the government does, and then they give us the representativeness of each of the surveys. They are well chosen. This is, I think that in several countries you have several similar. No, similar.
But is it the Bank of Spain then?
Yes, it is the Bank of Spain. Yeah.
That is the uniform survey in Europe. We have the same for the Italian.
Yeah. Then there are official data. Okay. Yeah. Yes, there are. I don't know if I can go, yeah, because they are explained here. Yeah, the first one is the easiest one, is the percentage of what you receive. The other is the decreased percentage in the probability of illiquidity. yeah? The probability that you have liquidity problems, yeah? The other one is a temporal indicator. This is the percentage increase in the expected value of years without liquidity problems, yeah? And the last one is the percentage reduction in the expected monetary amount of the lack of liquidity. We have considered of all of the problems liquidity, yeah? We have this. Yeah, let me go just because we have the coffee break, yeah? Then concluding remarks. As you have seen in the figures, the highest impact indicators are on the probability of illiquidity and on its present value. And the families that benefits more are cluster 3, the rich one, let me simplify, and the less, the cluster 2. Cluster 3, we have free, and in fact, the percentage impact is great, but the liquidity need with a reverse mortgage with only this amount, 245 euros per year. Yeah, they do not have problems. Yeah, and for families in cluster 2 and cluster 3, which have mostly married couples with a head of household being a man, we have the most significant favorable effects in cluster 3 and the less significant effects in cluster 2, depending on the household income and net wealth. And the last conclusion, perhaps, is that widowed woman aged between 21 and 25 years with a small income, net wealth and expenses, an habitual resident that represents half of her net wealth have benefited the most in terms of percentage increase in income, the first indicator. Then our results complement those obtained by Moscarola et al., that define, she's a co-author, yeah, a vulnerability index that and reinforce the conclusion that the most benefit profiles is how rich, cash rich, yeah? And our study provides strong arguments to facilitate the understanding, this is our opinion, yeah, of the risk of having problems of lack of liquidity once the working life is over, accentuated, among other causes, by the increase in longevity and the probability of falling into situation of dependency, yeah? And this is some of the references, and thank you very much. Yeah.
I think that...
if you don't mind, yeah? Well,
I think
one question, 2 questions, but quick questions, yeah?
I think...
Sí,
quick questions, yes, okay.
Yeah, the quick one. Well, it's okay. Okay, I haven't understood whether you also have empirical data on the people who have done the reverse mortgage, or whether this is the results that you gave, it's the potential one who could achieve and could benefit from them. Do you have a comparison? Because what you expect, is it the same? Yeah. Okay, so fantastic. We have the same question. Okay, it's only one.
Yeah. Well, no, this is potential effects, yeah? Okay. Because we do not have data about those who have a reverse mortgage. Why? Because this question is not included in the survey.
Oh, you may suggest the Bank of Spain.
Oh, yeah, but I have a doubt there. We have, this is what I try to stress, that we have made the calculation for all of the families, yeah? We have excluded several, you see, yeah? But I have stressed that if they could, we assume they will, yeah? Then if all of the families that can, yeah, they would do this, yeah, then this would be the effects. Yeah? These are potential effects, because the market in the reverse mortgage market in Spain is few. Yeah. Then we have not enough data to compare, yeah? This would be really good, yeah.
Have you looked at other countries? And because I know that in the UK there's been some surveys about what people want from reverse mortgages. You know, it's the same thing as what do you want in retirement, so what do you want from a reverse mortgage? And then there's bound to be some data in like the US, if there's a lot of reverse mortgages, what are the characteristics of the groups. So I don't know if you've been able to access that data. That's another.
Yeah,
another
a
issue.
very good question. Yeah, we would like to look at other surveys. Yeah, but we haven't had the time. We have begun with Spain. We have studied the UK market and the US market. Yeah, but we have not looked at their data because it's a complex market. There, it's a complex market. They have several kinds of rubber mortgage also. Yeah, and I'm sure that they have. There is an association, yeah, in which if you have the no negative equity guarantee, you can be included, yeah, but you have other, yeah, but we have not been able until the moment to go into depth in this market. Yeah, we have evaluated the numbers, in global, but not looking into the similar data that our survey in Spain. Yeah, but this is a good question, and we would like to do it. Yeah.
I conducted some surveys for the possibility of introducing this in Mexico, where there's even now a law about this. But the intake and the demand is very low. And what happens is heirs assume that the house is theirs. So if you ask the children, how would you see that your father, blah, 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 and they say, but why? The house is mine. And then the parents, the house owners asked us, okay, can I do this without my children knowing? Because otherwise they will not visit me.
Yeah, totally agree. And this is why I have commented the demand problem, yeah. And because they don't have a financial literacy and they do not understand the product, yeah, and they have the feeling that the house is from the inheritance. But this is another question. This is a cultural question, yeah. But this gives a reputational risk for the providers, because when the person dies and the problem is there, then the heirs do not understand, and then they claim to the insurance or to the bank, and this is a really a big reputational problem. This is why one of the reasons that the supply is so small. Not the longevity risk, not other risks, because companies are specialists in managing this kind of risks, yeah, they could, but the reputational risk, as far as we know, because we have made some studies from some insurance companies that wanted to enter to the market, but no, they were afraid of this, yeah, only for selected cases and so on, and they, at the end, they decide not to put the product on the market. Yeah.
I'll just say very quickly that one thing that has worked in some Italian provinces is an alliance from the private and public sector, because people don't trust an insurance agent that comes and suggests this contract. But if it goes through a public intermediaries, that is someone from the municipality, and they sort of guarantee the seriousness of this, then it has been more successful, because it's really very delicate. So you need someone from the public sector.
Yes, then you suggest that we need a convention between public and private. For instance, our politicians have said that, yes, insurance industry must, and at one time there was in the newspaper and so on, but in fact, we have explored that, for instance, that could be, the public could be, for instance, as the reinsurance regarding the insurance, yeah, regarding the risk and so on. Yeah, but, it's a difficult question from my point of view, yeah, but you have reason, we need a collaboration between both in order to, if really you want that people can liquefy the wealth that is really high and have a good old period of their life.
Problem of demand will decrease, because today we have still a relatively high replacement rates in European pension systems, and the forecasts are very, very pessimistic. So today people are skeptical about reverse mortgage. However, in the future, imagine we have a very, very poor household, pensioners' household, and what options are on the table? Equity release, and probably the only equity is the house. So the only option to stay in this house is a reverse mortgage, and the other option, if the house is big, you can replace it with a smaller one. Yes, so the cost of living is decreasing, and additionally you realize an additional income. So there are not other options. When you are a pensioner, you are not option to solve the problem or to repair the problem of not saving or saving too less, because it's too late.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, but as she has mentioned, the problem is there. Yeah, perhaps politicians would be interested in, but the private sector has supply problems, and then we have to make an agreement between all. We have to, some solutions, some that supply can be comfortable offering the product, and then I think that the question of the information and the simplification of the information, but clear information, not only to the people, to the person, but the health and so on, and some conscience, I don't know in English, to make a conscience in the culture, yeah, and but the question is there. Yeah? Okay. We go to now. Vale. Well, we finish with the session. ¿Está? Right. And we go to coffee. Vale. Bueno, pues for those who are online, the workshop is finished now because we are going to have a working session after, but thank you very much for all the attendance to this fantastic European seminar on private pension. It's not because we have organized it, but because of the participants that we remercie to all of you. Okay, bye-bye.